What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video, here to give you guys my hot takes on the Xbox announcement. It was a 30-minute show today, debuting everything third-party games. I counted 13 different games that were unveiled, and while it was the mostly CGI-filled trailer with very little gameplay, I do have to say that I think Xbox did a good job of managing a message that they are doubling down on smart delivery, and that Game Pass will continue to remain the premier game distribution streaming service that everybody thought it was going to be. Largely, I have to say that I was disappointed by the announcements, only in the sense that a lot of these games are not exclusive to Xbox. And while I understand that third-party synonymously does mean that, there wasn't really a lot of reason to get hyped about the Xbox Series X. Now, a lot of these games are going to be coming to PC. They're going to be coming to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, whatever. You're going to be able to get these on other platforms. They may not look as good as on the Series X, but they really didn't push anything by showing us any real gameplay. Even the hyped and coveted Assassin's Creed Valhalla trailer ultimately was no gameplay, and it was just pre-rendered cinematics. Now, I know you could argue and say, well, it was rendered in engine, and they did make a very big distinction at the beginning of this 30-minute block to say everything you see has been captured on Xbox Series X hardware, but most of the games had a disclaimer across the bottom that said it's representative of what it may look like on an Xbox Series X, which is not true game capture. And really what we want to see is gameplay. Seeing CGI trailers, pre-rendered trailers, or even live rendered trailers are not the same as seeing the HUD on the screen, seeing how the game looks and feels moment to moment, watching somebody physically play. And I guess I was naive to think that we would actually get that. Something you're used to seeing on an E3 stage where a guy will walk up, grab a controller, and play through, albeit a heavily scripted mission. We will actually see the game look and feel and actually work through a small section of the game to understand it. Here, when we've seen so many hype trailers where they're showing camera angles that are not indicative of what you're going to see in the game, where they're putting music behind it and showing off different types of cinematic reveals and trying to tell a story through this, it's not representative of what we would play. Dirt 5 is a perfect example because you didn't get to see any of the gameplay. You saw cars jumping over hills. Well, that doesn't really sell Dirt 5 to me, nor does that sell an Xbox Series X to me. And that's why I said, and I do believe when I said at the beginning of this video, I think what you are really hyping here is the smart delivery system and the fact that once you buy a game, it's going to carry over, whether you buy it on the X or the Xbox One X or the Series X, that game is going to carry through. We saw a huge reveal today of Madden, and not Madden 21. I really don't care about that. But the fact that EA is now on board with smart delivery. So all these third-party companies are signing up to deliver across that, which makes the Series X a very, very hard, it's very hard to deny that that is going to be a very consumer-friendly machine, and that's phenomenal. We now have CD Projekt Red announcing that Cyberpunk 2077 will carry over. Ubisoft announced Assassin's Creed Valhalla will carry over, and EA announced that Madden 21 will carry over. And I'm sure that's just the first of many who are going to be jumping on board with a smart delivery system. So that tells me one of two things. Either Microsoft has really nailed and figured out the third-party problem that they used to have a very long time ago. And when Phil Spencer said that they weren't going to kick money to all these companies to develop exclusives just for their console, like we saw Sony do pretty heavily with PlayStation 4, Phil was lying. Or the gameplay and graphics between the Xbox One X and the Series X aren't going to look that drastically different. You may get a slight improvement on resolution and a slight improvement on frame rate, but that's about it. And that's going to be really interesting to see how much things like RTX lighting and some of the advanced physics models that really do bog down a CPU. It'll be interesting to see how those translate between the current generation and the next generation of consoles. Ultimately, I feel Microsoft had a really good opportunity here to strike first and strike hard. And although I think it was cool to see something, it definitely builds up the hype and the excitement. I have to say, largely, a lot of these games will be forgotten. I mean, I wrote them down here, and honestly, I challenge you to name 2 or 3 games you saw today that you really remember that you were excited for. A lot of them were very vague horror-like trailers or vignettes of, cinematic type things that really didn't tell much of a gameplay story. Were they single player? Are they multiplayer? Do they how do you play them? Can you, is it story based? It's just nobody really knows. And I think largely that's where this thing failed. So I would say an A for effort, probably a C minus for execution. But that hidden gem of that smart delivery system, that's still that big unknown, didn't really get sold here, although it's been teased at a lot. And I think they're going to have to do a little better job if they're going to want to reveal that, because you're competing right now. If you're a Microsoft fan, or Microsoft shareholder or whatever, you're competing against a company in Sony who has a very, very solid fan base when it comes to showing off cinematic trailers. And we've seen a lot of gameplay now on some of these bigger games. And I think it's going to be a huge point of contention going forward. It's Sony's move, really, although Microsoft continues to dominate, and I'm happy that they're doing this, but I think we need to see more gameplay. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Keep in mind, we're going to start seeing stuff in July for the first-party stuff. Hopefully some gameplay. Maybe we can actually put this issue to rest, but I am really tired of cinematic trailers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.